Here's your host, Dieter Kurtenbach.
Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun yet with this Giants baseball team? No, seriously, I'm asking. Is anyone having fun with this Giants baseball team right now? Anyone at all? On June 13th, this team was tied for first place. Since then, they have won 20 of 57 games. This team has gone 9-21 since the All-Star game. And just a sim to the end thriller tonight. Absolutely no soul left, if it ever existed, with these San Francisco Giants right now. 61-66. They lose to the Padres 8-1. You could have convinced me it was 80-1. Just a laugher in the worst possible way. Back-to-back nights where that's the case. They've had one good inning in San Diego. And I know that we're well past the point where this team making the playoffs is a realistic conversation or even a fanciful one. I know we're well past that point. But there has to be some level of delusion for a professional baseball team in the middle of August that was playing at one point decent to above average baseball this season, maybe even not that long ago. There has to be some level of delusion that, hey, we can get back into this thing. We can make this thing interesting. Let's go on a push. Let's do something. You have to have that, even if it's irrational, even if it makes no sense, even if everybody's given up on you. Use that as fuel and go out there and play some energetic, soulful, engaged, positive baseball. They had a chance in a 4-game series in San Diego to, I don't know, make it slightly interesting. Make the most homers of homers think, hey, there's an outside shot here. We might get to the wild card. All we have to do is beat Cincinnati. I mean, the Reds? I mean, what are we talking about here? And they had one good inning, and since then have beaten everybody's hope down to less than nothing. It's negative hope right now. And again, I know that the hope was limited to begin with, but the fact that they have put up such little fight, the fact that they have been so boring in defeat over the last 2 games, and frankly, add the prior 8 innings before that, even though they won that game. The way that this team is playing baseball is the frustrating part. Because if you're with us now, you've in all likelihood sat through a good majority of that game, and I got to hand it to you. I'm getting paid, and I'm like, boy, is there anything else on? Can I please? Maybe we'll do the radio, and I'll do a crossword puzzle. See if John Miller has any anecdotes for me tonight, because anything but this baseball game. This is a soulless, swaggerless, negative vibed operation, and I can't help but think that this was partly by design from the San Francisco Giants. Now, hear me out here. When we introduce the games here on KNBR, they have a big package that they play with sound bites and highlights and Giants baseball on the sports leader and all that good stuff. And in that, there's a quote from Bob Melvin saying how everybody's hitting the ground running in spring training and the vibes are really high on this team. And vibes were like the key phrase. Everyone was talking about vibes. And it wasn't because that was the buzzword. Now, I don't know what Gen Z is using today. Certainly vibes has fallen out of favor. This team also has no aura, if we're still using that term. I don't know. I don't keep up with the kids. I mean, we're keeping up with like the AAA team, but not those kids. Those kids are too old. Regardless, everything was about vibes. And when this team got off to a surprising good start, right, where they're getting Wilmer Flores walk-offs, an inside the park home run walk-off, a Little League home run walk-off, the vibes couldn't have been higher. And that momentum carried into every day because everyone was feeling good, because luck was on their side. And, hey, the vibes were high. The vibes were high. And then when they start playing bad baseball, right around late June, What happens then? That momentum carries over. Negative vibes beget negative vibes. And this team has been unable to pull out of the spiral of bad vibrations that it has been in for more than a month now. Just as the good vibes created momentum, the bad vibes create momentum too, because this isn't really a process. This was hope. This was an idea. This was abstract. This isn't a good enough baseball team. This team is non-competitive without a Matt Chapman in the lineup. It's barely competitive with Matt Chapman in the lineup. This team, and I had to rerun the numbers on this again. And by the way, Rafi Devers is playing fine, and Jung-Hoo Lee is playing fine. And, Willy Adames isn't that far off from his career averages, it should be noted. But this team has almost $600 million tied up in 3 players. It has $1/3 billion, $333 million tied up in Chapman and Adames. And then it brought on another 250 plus with Devers. There's 3 players that are costing you more than $500 million. And yet this team is not competitive even when 2 of those guys are in the lineup day in and day out. And we'll get to the ins and outs and what happened to Landon Roup. We're all just sick to our stomach about that because it's just a brutal break, and we'll see the extent of it. Best case scenario, he's done for the year. We'll entertain the worst case scenario maybe tomorrow if we have to. And we'll talk about it in a bit. But this team has more than $500 million, almost $600 million tied up in 3 players, and they're not even in the same stratosphere as the Padres right now. This is a team that's, again, 9-21 since the All-Star break, 20-37 since they were tied for first place with the Dodgers, which might as well have been 10 years ago, given how long this season has felt since that day when the Giants tied for the lead in the division. It's a swaggerless baseball team, and I couldn't help but notice, watching the game broadcast, and there were a couple people on the old Twitter machine that noticed this too. Wilmer Flores at bat in the 2nd inning. Nothing going on, right? Just ho-hum. It's 1-0. Padres at the time. Wilmer Flores is up, and they cut to the dugout for some reason. I don't know who the director is for Giants baseball, but they did us a service this evening. And Bob Melvin and Willy Adames are kind of in a fight. I don't know what they were going on about. Unfortunately, the word pitch and non-printable word look very similar when you're reading lips. So I don't know what Willy Adames was saying, but I can tell you this. Bob Melvin kind of nodded and said, "Oh, okay," and then starts looking at the field, and Willy's still talking and kind of doing some passive-aggressive motions behind Bob's back. The vibes are great, you guys. This team has such great vibes right now, and the vibe master, Willy Adames, doesn't seem to be having a good time. And Bob Melvin, who doesn't seem to have emotions as the manager of this baseball team, which is a great thing when everything is going well and a terrible thing when everything's going wrong. And you can say, oh, being even-keeled all the time is the way to go. Not when this team needs a fire lit under its ass. And the manager is not the guy to do it. And Willy Adames is, the nice guy. And Rafi Devers just showed up. And Matt Chapman's always focused, so it wouldn't really resonate. Who is here to light a fire under this team's ass? Who is going to convince this team to play with a little bit of pride, to play with a little bit of swagger, to go out there and be competitive? Because right now, the entirety of this baseball team screams that they're not pulling themselves out of this tailslide. Every ounce of body language, certainly the play on the field itself, and then you look at the box score, you watch the games, everything screams, we've given up. And that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable on August 20th, even if there's nothing really to play for, to play as if you've given up. To be that honest about the situation, you have to have some delusion as a professional athlete. Here are the things that we're hearing from the San Francisco Giants right now. I don't know why we stink. I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on. All All right. You might not know. Try something. The other thing we heard, and this was from Elliot Ramos, is, oh, well, the fans don't know anything. Good look. Good look. I know that Elliot's walked it back, and Elliot's a really nice guy, and he was just being honest for a second, and that was his mistake. Because, truth be told, we don't know anything that's happening in the clubhouse. We can't give you the ins and outs of that. I'm in the clubhouse at times, and I can't tell you the ins and outs of what's happening with this Giants team behind the scene. Even the insiders don't seem to know. You know why? Because nothing's going on. Nothing interesting is happening. They're going through the motions. I don't know why we stink. You know, the team in 2021 didn't know why they were good either. And that success didn't last. It was a great year, just as this has been an awful year, save for the first month and a half. But they didn't know. And it just reminds you of all of these, all these great coaches in the history of sport that always talk about the process, always talk about the means on which they're going to be successful. What did Nick Saban call it? He called it the process, something to that effect. Everything's about that. I mean, Bill Walsh, right? Bill Walsh's entire thing was don't worry about the results. Worry about the things that can bring results. Focus on those. It feels as if the Giants are just at the whims of wins and losses. And again, when they're getting lucky as hell with a Wilmer Flores hot streak for the ages that was never going to last more than like a month and a half or 2 months, when they're getting inside the park and little league home runs as walk-offs, they think they're the greatest thing in the world. They think they're going to take down the Dodgers. Everything's great. And when they start losing, they believe that too, because there's no process, there's no function here. And it's really disappointing. And frankly, I kind of called it. I'm not patting myself on the back here. I wish I was wrong. And I'll give Buster Posey the benefit of the doubt in that this is his first year, but they're just kind of winging it right now. And when this is all said and done, I don't expect it to get better based on the fact of there seems to be no pride on this team right now. When it's all said and done, this thing, and we're finally over with it, well, what's everyone in charge with the San Francisco Giants going to do about it? Because this team needs to develop some sort of a process. This team needs to have something other than whims. If you're investing in the stock market and you were to just buy or sell based on what the CNBC ticker was telling you that day, you'd be a terrible investor. That's this baseball team right now. When things are good, they're great. When things are bad, they're awful. The manager is just along for the ride, it seems, and the players don't know what the hell's going on. This is not a formula for success. It's just not. And I'm wondering what the San Francisco Giants are going to do here this offseason, which feels like it started weeks ago, but in fact does not show up for another month plus. I wonder what the San Francisco Giants are going to do when that offseason really truly comes around and how they're going to rectify the fact that this team is just simply not playing with any pride right now, that they can't even muster the delusion to go out there and play competitive baseball against a rival team in a 4-game set where, hey, you go out there and you win 3 out of 4. Hell, you win 4 out of 4 and you won the first one. You can talk yourself into that 1% chance of making the playoffs turning into 5. And then we turn it into 10. And then we keep going from there. But they can't even muster that. And I understand it's tough when you don't have enough starting pitching, and they're down another starting pitcher. And we'll get into all that on the other side of the break. Your calls as well. Fill it up. I want to talk about it. 808 KNBR is the number. Kurtenbach is with you until 11 p.m. And we're just going to work through all of it until 11 p.m. on The Sports Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Now this is swinging. There's a high drive into deep right field. Way back there at the wall, the leap. And did he catch it or not? He's sitting on the ground and he's got it. He played it for the maximum drama and effect. He made the leap and brought that ball back into the park and fell down to the ground and was sitting there with his back against the outfield wall and waited a few seconds. And then he popped it out of the glove for all to see.
Yeah, that Fernando Tatis Jr. can play some baseball. The power hasn't been there for him lately, but get this, he still finds a way to affect games. Third home run rob of the year for Tatis. I think that leads Major League Baseball. Steals bases. Runs them well. Hitting doubles. Making stuff happen. What a concept. What a concept. That's what you pay a superstar to do. Okay, you're not hitting home runs right now. Are you winning in other ways? Are you helping us in other ways? Tatis is. You can forget about the home run stuff. It might come around. It might not. He's affecting winning in the meantime. By the way, the most interesting part, the coolest thing that Tatis did on that play was after the play. There's certain doctors tell you that, like, longevity experts, like grip strength and things like that, one of them is being able to get up off the ground without using your hands, like without pushing yourself up. Tatis is sitting there on the wall, cross-legged, and just stands up. Didn't use his hands or anything. I tried that for about 10 minutes in my living room. It didn't go as well as it did for Fernando Tatis, which is to be expected, but still, it was mighty impressive. Fernando Tatis, hell of a baseball player. And I guess that was the point where the Giants gave up. I mean, kind of felt that way. And listen, I can understand the deflation that comes when you see Landon Roup. At this point, we it's called a knee strain. But Roup going down is disheartening. Let's be clear about this. I mean, when Roup went down, he wasn't pitching very well. Okay. And honestly, that was going to be a positive. I have in my notes here, like, this is a great opportunity for Landon Roup to show us how he can pitch when he does not have his breaking stuff, because he had none of it. Changeup was bad. The curveball was bad. It was a no bueno performance from a young pitcher who just hasn't looked the same since coming off the IL. But we're going to find out what kind of guts the kid has. And when you have a season that's heading nowhere, these are the kind of things that I find interesting. These are the kind of things that you can look back on a year from now, 2 years from now, and say, hey, that's when we found out Landon Roup had what it takes, because the stuff will come back at some point. But we know that this kid's got the gumption to fight through it and find ways to affect winning, even when he doesn't have his best stuff. If he can gut this game out, that'd really be something. And unfortunately for him, and by no fault of his own, just a terrible situation happens with his knee after he gets a line drive right off his hammy, and the knee buckles as he's trying to play it and gets carted off the field. And we'll see the extent of it. I believe he's getting an MRI tomorrow. Best case scenario for Landon Roup is that he's probably done for the rest of the year. Worst case scenario is that this is something like a torn ACL or something to that effect that keeps him out much longer than that. And the Giants don't have a Landon Roup at spring training, and they don't have him until like next June or something, because this is a young pitcher who had been given a good opportunity here, and he had earned it, to show that he was part of the Giants' future plans in a big way. Like that he could be their number 3 next year if Robbie Ray sticks around. That's a big deal. That's a big deal, and it's very unfortunate that Roup went down. So I can understand a bit of the deflation from the Giants seeing that happen, right? At the same time, I mean, how much air was left in that balloon to deflate? Because this team came in flat after they played flat yesterday, and they played flat the 8 innings before that, the day before. And it was just a soulless performance. Good for Casey Schmidt hitting a home run. That's it. It's the only thing interesting that happened. This was a sim to the end baseball game. This was MLB The Show. The computer took care of it all. Very disheartening that this team can't find a little bit of fight just every now and again. That they just seem consigned to their fate of continuing to lose. Very disappointing. Let's go to the phone lines. I know you guys won't be disappointing. I'm excited to talk to y'all. Let's go to George in San Francisco. George, you're on the leader.
Hey, Dieter. Glad to be batting leadoff here. I totally agree with everything you're saying. First of all, the Tatis Jr. home run robbery tonight, if I was a Giants player, a pitcher, I would have been frustrated as hell watching him sit there, pimping that one out. That was not cool. And if that would have been like Madison Bumgarner coming onto that mound tonight, he would have plunked that dude on the first pitch. And, that represents what this Giants team is. It's mid. The vibes ran out right somewhere around the All-Star break. Bo Mid is just there. He's just present. Same thing with the rest of the coaches. And, I'm not going to criticize what Buster Posey did with the Devers trade. We got to be patient on that one. But doubling back down on Bob Melvin for another year, come on, man. It's really clear to see this team has no grit, no attitude, no direction. Right. I have a feeling we're going to get a Labubu giveaway at AT&T Park before we get a freaking NL pennant. And that's sad. There's just no life. I'm fed up. I'm not going to spend money to go to another game this season. I'll listen to it for free on the Sports Leader as I have been this whole season. And before I get off the line, I just want to say happy National Radio Day. I love you guys. And just come on. More energy, guys. I'm tired of it. Let's go.
I'm with you, George. Bo Mid is going to be tough to be. That's the play of the game so far. It's funny. I was thinking about Bob Melvin's career, right? And he has had moments where his teams have been wildly successful. But I thought about when he went to San Diego and how chaotic the Padres felt during his years in San Diego. They had early success, and then he got ran out of town because his teams were kind of wild, right? There was always some nonsense and drama, but he somehow, and again, I don't want to go too far on one way or another on this because I could not tell you how important a manager is. I just have no idea anymore in modern Major League Baseball. But they ran him out of town in San Diego. That seems to be a pretty well-run operation. They ran him out of town because he took a team that had Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, and, Juan Soto, and somehow turned him into like a 500 baseball team. So they're like, you got to go. And they brought in Mike Schilt, who I don't know if he's a good manager or not, but his temperament seems to better fit this team. He's kept Machado in line for all intents and purposes. He has Tatis playing hard. I'm going to disagree with you on the pimping of the home run thing. If the Giants want to take umbrage with it, that's fine. And frankly, I agree with your point that maybe the Giants should just if you got to make a straw man up in order to get to play hard, go to town. And if Tatis's nothing burger of a catch there where he's sitting there, if that's the thing that gets you your ass red and that gets you to play hard, more power to you. But I didn't personally take offense to it. But again, I'm all in on straw men arguments here because anything will do. If you're not going to come up with a good one, come up with a fake one that makes no sense. Michael Jordan was making up new enemies every day. The best of the best were total sociopaths who made up new enemies every single day. If that's what the Giants need to do right now to play some sort of energetic, impassioned baseball, please double down on it. Create a life enemy out of Fernando Tatis. I couldn't care less. Just do something. Bo Mid, again, call of the day. It's going to be hard to beat. Let's go to Rick and Hayward and see what he's got for us. Rick, you're on the leader.
Hey, Dieter. You were talking about next year and what does that perhaps do? Well, if you go on Cots.com and look at the Giants salaries for next year, they've already got $160 million spent of the $240 million that they can spend before they go over the threshold. And you better believe they're not going to go over the threshold in a year that is the last year of the CBA, and nobody knows if there's actually going to be a well, the players don't want to pay a salary cap, so there's going to be a work stoppage. So basically, they have around, I think Buster would hold back about $25 million for the deadline, so they have about $50 million or $60 million to spend on 22 players because they've already got Devers, Chapman, Adames, Lee, Webb, and Ray making that $138 million, and then they got Soler for about almost a little under $2 million that they have to pay to Atlanta, and the buyout to Murphy plus arbitration, pre-arbitration, and benefits.
It adds up.
So they got 160. Yeah, it's all adding up. So and then basically you got Ramos and left. He's pre-arbitration, so they're not going to get rid of him. They've got Schmidt at second base pre-arbitration. Not going to get rid of him, and they got the catcher. They're not going to get rid of him. So
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Field.
I don't know if Patrick Bailey. I mean, there have been some rumblings that Patrick Bailey's inability to hit a baseball might actually lose him a job. We'll see. He's got about a month and a half to prove that he can hit a baseball again. But right now, Patrick Bailey's batting .212 with a .568 OPS, and I don't know which side is his stronger side at the plate because neither of them seem to be doing any damage whatsoever. I heard John Miller saying Bailey's batting from the weaker side, his weaker side, and I'm like, I couldn't even tell you which side that is right now. You're right. You're right, Rick. They have a lot of money tied up. I will never, under any circumstances, tell the San Francisco Giants to stop spending money because they haven't. It's not as if they're some second division soccer team spending beyond their means to get promoted to the Premier League here, right? They have the money. The ballpark gets 30,000 people in it every day out San Francisco prices. They can afford whatever kind of baseball team they want to put on the field. And Buster Posey has made the decision by giving Matt Chapman more than Farhan Zaidi wanted to give him, by signing Willy Adames, and then by going out and getting Rafi Devers, a deal that I lauded at the time and will continue to laud to this day. He is an impact bat for a team that desperately needed an impact bat. Not sure it's had the impact yet, but Rafi Devers' track record stands up a lot longer than what we've seen from him in a Giants uniform. And it's coming around here. Like, I have no problem with them spending money. Now, if they want to go over the number, please, by all means. In fact, it seems as if they have to. But I'm not sure spending more money at this point is what the San Francisco Giants need. It feels as if they need like 30 borderline quality major league players. They need some depth. They need someone they can count on. Because, okay, you got Ramos, you got Devers, you got Adames, and then you should have Chapman, and then Jung-Hoo Lee. Okay, what's the rest of your lineup? I know it's, little less than half, but that's still 4 spots in the lineup every day that you have to figure out who's gonna help you win. If you show up to the game and pitchers don't have to worry about 4 spots in your lineup, you're going to lose that game more often than not, and that's been the case for the Giants as of late. I don't think going out and spending a bunch of money on a bunch of mid-tier free agents or one more big-time free agent is going to do anything for them. This was my concern when we started this process with Buster, is that the cupboard was bare. And it wasn't necessarily at the major league level bare because they did have some decent enough players and that they could scrounge together 81 and 81 every year with those players. But the farm system was arguably the worst in baseball. And people will say, well, what about Bryce Eldridge? Well, what happens if he gets called up? Then it is the worst in baseball. They don't have enough people coming up to help them win baseball games. And that's evident when you watch the lineup. Like, I don't mind Christian Koss. Like, he can't be batting 7th for you, right? Casey Schmidt was batting cleanup yesterday. They don't have enough depth. And they're running through a bunch of retreads of guys who have shown in the past that they don't have what it takes to hit at the major league level or even really contribute to winning at the major league level. And they have to keep rotating through them because there's nobody coming up the pipeline that can reasonably take their job anytime soon. And then, yes, Eldridge. As I said at the beginning of the season, and I'll repeat today, the more you talk about Bryce Eldridge, there's a direct correlation between that, or an inverse correlation, I should say. More Bryce Eldridge talk equals worse record. So I didn't want to hear about Bryce Eldridge all year, and yet that's all we can talk about. because we have to have something that gives us hope for the future with the San Francisco Giants, I'll throw out the hottest take that you're ever going to hear on these airwaves. All right, let's all take a moment. Let's make sure that we're braced. If you're driving, I might recommend pulling over right now because you might swerve when you hear this. I would trade Bryce Eldridge because you have one prospect, one theoretical uber prospect, though I don't believe he's viewed that way by external sources, but surely somebody else will see what we all see in Bryce Eldridge. I would trade him for 5 or 6 other prospects. You see the way that a lot of teams, and let's use the Red Sox as an example, the Rays as well, you see the way that some of these teams view their prospects and that they go and they give them 8-9-year contracts to buy out their arbitration years, get them at a cost certainty, but they turn them into veteran contracts almost immediately after getting called up. I'm not saying that the Giants are going to do anything like that, and I don't even know when Eldridge is coming up. I don't think it should be this year. But if the Giants believe that they have a true blue chipper, a true no-doubt guy, then there would have to be some sort of a market for him on the trading block. And not just for some rental of a guy who's 33 years old and might be able to get you over the... I'm talking about would one team that feels like they have a lot of good depth in their farm system trade some of that depth or all of that depth, let's be honest, all of that depth for one other prospect in Bryce Eldridge. Because right now, I would argue he's their best trading chip. And this team needs to build a farm system that can help them win baseball games over a 162-game season. And the Marco Lucianos of the world have just completely soured me to the idea that one uber prospect is going to come up and save everything. Right? It has been a minute since anything like that has happened. It was a dead ball era the last time that happened. So if someone wants to give you the farm for a guy who's still currently on the farm because they see the potential of him, let them take that risk and you take the 5 or 6 or 7 in hand as opposed to the 1 in the bush. That's your super hot take for the night. All right. Ben in Berkeley. You're on the leader.
Oh, thanks, Dieter. Nice to thanks for taking my call. I was going to say there's a great article in the Sporting News, and it says the Giants' record since the Rafael Devers trade is worse than you think. They have the worst record in baseball, and the Red Sox made the best trade in baseball. They shed $280 million. They got 2 first-round draft picks. They have a top 4 record since they trade of Rafael Devers. And I just think, Buster Posey, he's not really fit for the job because you have to understand, he has to learn 1,200 major league players.
Yep.
He has to learn 3,600 minor league players. Yep. He has 300 Division I colleges to go over. He has the Summer Cactus League, the Winter Dominican League, the Japanese League, Korean League, Australian, Mexico. It's totally global. And here's a guy who just wants to be on TV like Brad Pitt in the movie Moneyball. And
I'm not sure about that part. I'm not sure about Buster. I don't think we can listen. It is totally fair to go in on Buster for the moves that he's made and his lack of experience in the role. Heaven knows I've done it. But there is no evidence whatsoever that Buster Posey is doing this to get attention. That is a completely unfair accusation. Just because he's good looking doesn't mean he wants to be Brad Pitt in Moneyball, which I don't even understand the analogy there, because that was a movie that came out 12 years after Moneyball became famous in the 2003 season. So I don't even know what that means. But Buster Posey, who, by the way, appreciate that he has been better with the media, never says anything interesting. Buster is very reticent to say interesting things towards the media. So the idea that he's doing this just so that he can get attention, I think, is perhaps the furthest thing from the truth. I believe that Buster Posey's intentions are pure. And I believe that Buster Posey has the cognitive ability to pull this off, perhaps. Perhaps. It is a tall order, as you laid out. And I laid it all out when they first hired him, and I got roasted for it. But the truth remains. Buster Posey was not in the mix. Buster Posey was not somebody who was living this lifestyle on a day-to-day basis. And it is a lifestyle being an executive in Major League Baseball. You have to be in it at all times. And while I don't know if the people that he has around him are effective or not, I don't know if Zach Maniason is a good GM or not, but he's carrying a lot heavier of a load than he would be for somebody else, say Buster's predecessor, who, by the way, to be clear, had to go. He had to go. His results weren't manifesting anything positive for this team anymore. He had to go. But maybe, and this is easy to say now, but I want to say again, because I said it back when this happened, maybe you actually do an honest-to-God search for a baseball lifer. Man or woman, brown, white, agent, whatever. I don't care, but how about you find somebody who's been in the mix every day, who has ideas, who can bring some fresh ideas, some new eyes, and some experience into the role. And they just said, no, Buster said he wanted to do it, so we let Buster do it. And again, I don't know if Buster's good at this or not, because it doesn't seem like he's done that much, save for sign Willie Adames, then kind of stand pat from there. And then when things weren't working well, we're going to get rid of Lamont Wade, which, by the way, the Angels just did too, so not exactly going out on a limb there. Like, let's get rid of our worst hitter. Whoa, what a concept. Oh, he's also in his mid-30s? Wow, so bold. And that shook it up, and you get Dom Smith. I mean, real game changer. And then when that's not working, you go, get Rafi Devers. Now, I'll say this. Buster will get a good honest-to-God offseason here. He's been in the mix now. Going into this offseason, it will be a full year. You get an honest-to-God offseason, and what he does will be very telling, because it doesn't seem as if minor moves are going to get anything done for this team. And clearly, ownership has no interest in bottoming out. Not that you ever should, but they have no interest in ever taking a step back in order to perhaps take 2 or 3 steps forward down the line. So he's in a very challenging spot. He has to do an entire farm system, and he's got a baseball team at the major league level that's strictly not competitive right now. And you can't blame injuries for that. They're not competitive. So what kind of moves can he make? Because they're going to have to be bold, and they're going to have to be brash. And he's going to have to make all the ancillary moves, the moves that don't show up on the front page of the newspaper, that help your team win baseball games over the course of a 162-game season, because depth, more so than stars, is what wins in this league. Now, if you can merge the two, you're competing for World Series. But in the meantime, you better have some depth, because this team has stars, in theory. It has no depth, and we're seeing what that gets us. We got to take a quick break. We're going to come back to the phone lines on the other side. Bert, Mark, Gary, hang around if you're still there. Kurtenbach with you until 11 on the Sports Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Foreshadowing to a couple of years later. Now Schmidt drives one to deep left field and gone up over the left field wall. Somewhere Matt Latos is cringing. The Giants against his old team. Casey Schmidt with a home run. That was a laser beam. Guarantee he hit it harder than 89 miles an hour off the bat. It's 6-1 Padres.
Yeah. Well, Gavin Sheets only hit it 89 miles per hour. The Padres be cheating. 8-1. The Giants driven anybody home outside of home runs this series? No. But, 89 miles per hour. I don't know how you can compete with that. They have this guy. He's just really strong. He just willed it over the fence. I don't know how you compete with that. Might as well roll over. Let's talk to Bert. Bert's in San Diego. Bert, you're on the leader.
Hey, hi Peter. Actually, I live in Hawaii, and then I came to San Diego to watch this 4-game series. So, the first game was a real good game. So, Robbie Ray and stuff. The second game obviously wasn't that good. Today's game, I left in the 4th inning, after 4 innings. So,
That's the right call. You didn't miss anything.
Yeah. So, and then, I get to go to tomorrow's game, Steve Verlander pitch and stuff. So, anyway, that's what's happening for me. So, actually, I live in Hawaii. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was, you mentioned something about Adames. And I saw, when I was at the game today, I saw something that was unusual in the sense that, I tried to figure out what inning that was, and I think it was the end of the first inning, the bottom of the first inning, and starting the top of the second. Adames stayed out on the field in between innings, so the Padres team was coming out on the field. They were warming up, etc. And Adames stayed on the field, and he was talking to the umpire, the second base umpire, and it was strange. And then I was thinking, I've never seen that. He just stayed out there. He was just talking. So I don't know. I was thinking whether he was arguing or whether he was friends with the umpire, but he stayed out there basically up until the batter came up to bat. So, and then you mentioned something about some discussion in the dugout. So I'm trying to piece together what was happening there.
Yeah, I wish I was in San Diego.
I don't know.
Get to the bottom of it.
Okay,
I have no idea.
Yeah, so
I luckily with the power of technology in the year 2025, I rewatched and watched. I'm like, what the hell is Adames talking to Melvin about here? It was a bad look when they cut to the Giants dugout, and I don't think that they expected it to be so enlightening. I guess it's not enlightening because I don't know what the hell was going on, but it did not seem like they were having a good time together. Did not seem like an enjoyable conversation. Seemed like, had the tone of like me and my wife when we don't sleep because we have 2 kids, like kind of the back and forth passive aggressive nonsense that comes up at 3:00 in the morning when neither of us wants to go get the toddler and put her back in bed. Like that kind of like, heaven forbid I do it. Something to that effect. That was the energy I was picking up off of that conversation. And honestly, Bert, like that's as enlightening as anybody's been regarding that. I don't know if any of the beat writers who are on the ground in San Diego asked about it. I don't know if they saw it. I certainly have put it in the hands of beat writers down there. Maybe we'll get an answer tomorrow before the game. But a weird thing happening there. And maybe it's all very above board. Maybe there was something going on between Willie Adames and the second base umpire tonight. And, that's baseball, right? These are all professionals. You all got to go to work together. And sometimes guys don't get along. That's A-okay. I'd prefer if guys on your own team got along, and it just didn't seem like Bob Melvin and Willie Adames were on the same page, at least in terms of tone when they cut to the dugout. Again, you don't want to read too far into it because we have no idea, but just one of those things where it's like, vibes don't seem awesome on this team. And I was under the impression that the foundation of this team was vibes. So appreciate the call, Bert. Safe travels back to Hawaii, and I'm sorry that you're having to watch such bad baseball on your trip to San Diego. Let's talk to Mark in Napa. Mark, you're on the leader.
Good Good evening, Dieter. And I have to say that two things, Verlander and Bailey. When, the signing of Verlander, I think, was misguided at the beginning from the start. And I think that the fact that they've stuck with him for so long really is kind of indicative of perhaps like not realizing that you made a mistake and being able to change that mistake. And then, you mentioned it earlier with a different caller about Bailey, and just makes you long for the glory days of Joey Bart. And it's really difficult to watch. And yeah, the framing, the defense. When I listen to the game, listen to the commentators, that is brought up a lot, and I don't know. I just don't see it, and it's disappointing to have both the players that I've just talked about. I think that they've been stuck. The Giants have stuck with them too long, and I must say I do not have answers. Like, I do not have an alternative that, they should have gone with this person. I'm not that educated, and I don't spend that much time kind of in the weeds.
No,
but
fair enough.
There has to be an alternative, and the fact that they didn't look for that alternative and kind of burned a season on both these guys, that's disappointing. And I don't know. It's just
it's a good point, Mark.
Dog days of August, and it just feels like that first series after the All-Star break with the Mets, where the Giants were swept. That just felt like that was the rest of the year, And it's unfortunate, but and what you were saying earlier about Buster, we got to give him some more time. And
of course,
I have no doubt that he has applied himself to this and is an intelligent baseball guy and realizes his shortcomings and realizes some of his strengths. And, we got to have faith in him, because, trying to give, him some sort of short leash, like this is a long-term play. And I do believe that in the end, the things that made him a great player may well elevate him as an executive. But this has been, he came into it, he inherited a club, and it's not going to be his club for at least 2 or 3 years, maybe longer,
right.
Right. But many of the things that have been brought up this evening, it's getting towards 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night at the end of a difficult year, end in sight. And I just feel like the people that he depended on to have big years have not had them. And it's a reasonable guess to believe that those people were going to play better over the course of a season. And whether it was injuries or whether it was some sort of misalignment from the team and sort of those players regressing to below average sort of production, maybe that means next year they'll have a better year. I don't know that.
Maybe.
But
it's all you can do. Because let's be real. You have no choice but to hope that. And I'm not saying it won't happen. I think it's a very reasonable expectation for it to happen, given that these guys have track records, Devers in particular. But it is hope. That's what we're operating on. Let's be clear here. Like, Willy Adames is not very far off from his career averages. He had a monster final season of his contract. When have we heard that before? And he is worse than his usual output, unquestionably. But he is not far off from his usual output. He is about 8 to 10% better than the league average, according to WRC+. This year, he's like 2 or 3. And we're not talking about perennial all-star, middle of the lineup kind of a bat. We're talking about a streaky hitter who, in the course of his career, runs into about 20 or something home runs and has had 100 RBIs once in his career. And it was in a magical final season with the Milwaukee Brewers that got him paid in a big way against a marketplace, it should be noted, that wasn't very competitive when it came to fighting for his signature. There weren't a lot of teams banging at the door saying, we got to get Willy Adames, but the San Francisco Giants were one of them, and it has not panned out the way that they thought it would, but perhaps those expectations were a little too lofty given Willy Adames' history in Major League Baseball. This is a guy who got traded once, let's not forget, because he wasn't performing for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. I guess they were just the Rays at the time. I'm dating him a little bit by calling him the Devil Rays. I'm dating myself, certainly, in that. Quickly want to do a quick take on Verlander and Bailey here. The Verlander thing, let's be clear, Verlander's got a 2.65 ERA over his last 3 starts. So, like, he's coming around, but he's 42 years old. My understanding is that the Giants were absolutely shopping him around, that Verlander wasn't terribly keen on just going anywhere, and that the places that he would have been, and it wasn't as specific as here's a list, but the places that were interested in picking him up didn't really want to give up anything because he had like a 5 ERA and wasn't pitching well, and he didn't really want to go to. And it's like, well, you're 42 years old, you're a future Hall of Famer, we're going to show you some respect here, and we're going to let you figure it out while we're here because you feel like you're on the cusp, and he has been proven to be partially correct with that. It means nothing because this season means nothing with the point he started figuring it out, but there is some extra stuff that has to be taken into consideration with Verlander because of his age, because of his incredible resume, and because, you do need a veteran presence like that. And say what you will about Logan Webb, say what you will about Robbie Ray, but you do need sort of a quasi-pitching coach to be around. And Justin Verlander's about as good of a pitching coach as you're ever going to get in your clubhouse. As for Bailey, my stance on him has been clear. I don't see it either. I specifically I do not see it. I see a lot of pass balls. I see a guy who sells out to throw guys out. I know his pop time's great. I feel like Patrick Bailey, whether conscious or not, has figured out a way to game some of these systems that give us very specific numbers, like defensive runs saved and pop. I feel like he's gamed that stuff that makes him a Gold Glover, because when you watch him every day, he doesn't feel like a Gold Glover. He doesn't feel like a Gold Glover, and this year he hasn't particularly looked like one. It didn't look like one last year when he won it. Didn't look like one the year before. I don't see it, and the bat gives you nothing. And Patrick, I think there's a reckoning coming, and I would hope that the Giants would be ahead of the curve here. But with automated balls and strikes coming, whatever advantage he gives you by framing is about to disappear. So what is it that he does for you? I don't see it, and he's got about a month and a half to show us something, anything, because you might as well ride it out. Okay, Jacob's going to kill me for this, but I want to go to Gary in Newbury Park. Gary, we got about a minute here on the leader. Sorry to cut you short, but if you want to get it in, let's get it in, Gary.
Okay, I'll make it quick. You said we have stars in theory. That's what the problem is, Peter, but we don't have any practical application stars. Adames, Chapman, and Devers are killing this team. They're making a ton of money, and these guys ought to be producing. When they brought Devers over here, they said he could carry a team on his back. I'd like to know when he's going to start doing this. The complementary players have been shaky, too, Fitzgerald, Bailey, and Yastrzemski. But the main culprits are the 3 guys I mentioned. They'd make all the money. They got to be producing better than this. And we're stuck with these 3 guys for the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's what the problem is. We don't have anything at AAA, and we can't trade anybody because you don't have anybody wants. He's going to have to go out in the free agent market. I don't think ownership's going to spend money on any big-name free agents. That's what the problem is. Buster's in a box.
Yeah. No, I don't envy him. He probably has the hardest job in Major League Baseball right now that has any possibility of upside. Like, I wouldn't want to be in charge of the Pirates or Tampa Bay or anything like the Rockies. But, like, if you're talking about a team that should be better, Buster has it about as bad. And by the way, that hasn't changed. This is why Farhan had to go, because Farhan inherited a situation that I called at the time, and I think there were plenty that agreed with me, the worst situation in baseball. Because, again, expectations were high and the reasonable output was so low. And 7 years later, the same thing was the case. The expectations remained high and the reasonable output, because of the lack of a farm system, because of them just trying to tide over year after year, he didn't make the situation better. When you show up someplace, you should leave it better than where you found it. Buster Posey luckily inherited a pretty bad situation here. He's going to get an opportunity to leave it better than what he found it. And I don't know when that will be at the end, but we're operating on a lot of hope here, folks. And it would make it a hell of a lot easier if the San Francisco Giants would at least play with some passion and some pride for the final month and a half. Even if they lose, just play with some passion and some pride instead of just rolling over And that's what I saw tonight. That's what I saw yesterday. And it's what I expect to see for the rest of the season. And it's going to bring some big questions to Buster Posey's desk when this is all said and done. Was that a good show? You guys were great. I enjoyed the hell out of it. We'll do it again some other time. Have a great night, everybody. For Jacob Violante, I'm Dieter Kurtenbach. Get some sleep.